Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. For those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X, we're glad to have you all with us. Going to bring in our friends over on Instagram so they can be a part of our chat for today. And last but certainly not least, going to connect with our friends over on Amazon Live. I'm very excited about our next guest. Had a chance to read his book, and so I'm glad to be able to speak with him about it. Larry Zuckerman is joining us today to talk to us about his book. You guys can see there. It's called To Save a Life. I'm going to talk to Larry not only about the writing of the book, but also what it's been like for him to share these characters. For those of you who are joining us on the Amazon platform, welcome. Going to type you guys in a welcome message over there. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button. If you guys are new to us on Amazon, if you'll find it either here in this corner or down below, you also will see Larry's book there in our carousel, both the print edition and the Kindle edition. Larry, thank you so much for stopping by today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, the pleasure's definitely all mine, Larry. Congratulations again on the book To Save a Life. We're going to get into some of the characters and the story a little bit later, but I want to ask you first, what has it been like for you, Larry, to take two of your passions, one being history and one being writing, and bring them together in this new book?
Well, I grew up in the house I grew up in. Storytelling really mattered, and history really mattered.
Mm,
And so my parents met in a play in high school, so it's like this drama all over it. So it's like that's where I go to. I mean that's what I love. So
yeah,
it was I had a lot of fun writing this book, a lot
yeah.
of fun.
And thank you for sharing that personal story. I think that that's really interesting. So, I mean, so creativity also is something seems to run in the family as well, Larry.
Yes, that's and it's not an accident that Yakov, one of my two main characters, is an artist, and in fact, you could argue that Malka is too. She's a seamstress. She designs clothes.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Yeah. I love this story. When the book was first pitched to me, and shout out to Page Turner Publicity, our friend Javier Perez, for connecting us. Larry, I was interested in it. I didn't know what to expect, to be quite honest with you. But once I got into the story, I have to tell you, it felt so familiar. And that's an interesting thing for me because even though the book is set in the early 1900s, in a time that is very difficult, the characters seem so relatable and real. What was it like for you to bring them to life and to see the way that readers are resonating with them?
it has pleased me very much that reviewers have said that this is a book about people whose lives have been shattered and they're trying to pick up the pieces. And that's something. I mean, unless you've lived a very charmed life, I don't know anybody who hasn't had serious losses and then had to cope with them. So that's what I'm trying to get across. I mean, these characters do come from a particular time and place, from a particular culture, but it's that that message goes across everywhere. I think everybody can understand this.
I so agree. I want to say hello to you, Nikki, over there on IG. Glad you could join us. KJ, hello to you as well over there on the IG side. And that is what's so great. So I want to talk about that. What was kind of the seed for you with this book, Larry? Because I think again we find these characters, as you reference, Malka and Yakov, who are finding themselves in a situation where they're kind of just trying to figure things out individually, but also even with themselves. So what was it that kind of sparked this particular story?
The first glimmers of it, many years ago, I visited the Orchard Street Tenement Museum in Lower Manhattan, and I walked through an apartment that had housed generations of immigrants.
Hmm.
And I wondered as I was looking at these matchbox sized rooms in which people were crammed 10 to the dozen, in which there very little light or air or privacy. And the only sink in the apartment was in the kitchen and it was low to the floor, so it was hard to use. And the stove was across the room from it. It's like they had sacrificed so much to get here and they were continuing to sacrifice because there was something they firmly believed in. They had dreams, and to realize those dreams they went to very great lengths. Not all of them managed
Yeah.
to get where they wanted, but they all persevered. They had no choice, and that left a very deep impression on me. And so a couple of years ago, when I was looking around for a topic to write about, I said, yes, let's talk about that. And since it's my culture, I'm Jewish. My grandparents came from Eastern Europe around the time of this book takes place. It felt natural to do that.
Love it. With the characters with Malka and Yakov, Larry, they both find themselves in interesting situations, wanting, as I mentioned, wanting better. and willing to go to great lengths to be able to get it. Let's talk about Malcolm for a moment, because I think for a lot of times, and what your book shows, and unfortunately, some would argue, Larry, it's still relevant today, that women are sometimes relegated to certain destinies. Right, people just expect certain things from women. Unfortunately, Malcolm was not someone who was going to settle for what
No,
was expected. What was it like for you bringing her to life?
I enjoyed that very much. I like stories about what I call quiet subversives. They
Mhm,
conduct a one-person revolution just by the way they live,
mhm,
but they feel very conflicted about it because they have traditional values. Well, that's Malka,
yeah,
because she comes to New York armed against, with a bulwark inside herself against what she thinks of as the greed and hustle of what was called the Golden Land and its immorality, as she thinks. And so when she gets here, though, she realizes that there's another promise that's there. She can choose her own life because
yeah,
that's what Americans do. And that's very dangerous because it's all about desire, and desire gets you into trouble, right? And also she knows, has learned from a young age that nothing comes for free. So what will she have to give up in order to get it? Her traditions? Never. So how she manages to negotiate that really grabbed me. I wanted to figure out how she would do that.
yeah. And then you have someone like Yakov, who again is looking for, to be able to prove something, I think, to himself and to others about what is possible, but also to follow his own passion. Talk to us about Yakov and what it was like for you to be able to tell his story.
He has a dream that he thinks is practical, actually. He wants to be a singing waiter. He
Mm,
loves music. And back in Russia, his father dealt with that by hitting him with the back of his hand. I mean, music was, he was going to be a carpenter like his dad.
yeah,
And Yakov wasn't down for that. So when he emigrates, he decides that he's going to pursue that dream. And it's a very modest dream, being a singing waiter. I borrowed that detail, incidentally, from the life of Irving Berlin.
mm,
Um, that it's not going to tempt fate. It's just modest. It's about bringing happiness to people through music and being happy himself. But he also thinks it's very practical. It's a way to get out of the sweatshop.
yeah,
Anybody else listening to him would think he was nuts.
yeah.
It's like, you can't do that. But he sets his mind to it.
Mhm.
And that really fascinated me too. I wanted to pursue that.
And that brings us to one of the conversations in the book, and the dialogue in this book is so great, Larry, for sure. But Yakov is having this conversation, and he's being asked about the opportunities that he thinks will be there in the Golden Land, and one of the things that Yakov says is, as far as himself is, after being asked, so your life is a parable. Yakov says, no, a reminder that others sacrifice. I must live in a manner worthy of it. I thought that was such a great line, because I thought about my own life, and my being an individual who, my mother grew up in segregation, and wanting something different for her children, and glad to be in a place where her children have to deal with what she had to when it comes to discrimination and prejudice. What was it like for you to have Yakov be able to put those words out there about basically saying he wants his life to have meaning?
I That meant a lot to me to be able to do that. Is one of the things that I think, as a historian and historical novelist, history teaches us what happened before. And it's so easy when you're a generation or two or three removed from what happened to say, oh, that doesn't apply to me now. The things are different now. No, the things may be different, but the same laws apply and the same feelings apply. And you cannot lose touch with where you came from, or because if you forget it, you can't be as true to yourself as you need to be.
Mm. Is that one of the things that draws you to writing and being able to fictionalize what was someone's life, Larry, and someone's desires and aspirations?
Absolutely. It's trying to step into someone else's shoes. I am I don't come from exactly the same culture that Malka and Yaakov did. I mean, the, and my grandparents don't really figure in this story at all. They're not. I borrowed one or two historical details. Yaakov emigrates as a teenager. My grandfather did too. That's about it.
Mhm.
So it's like being able to make something out of whole cloth, but still has meaning and still connects to me. And yet it happened 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. That
Yeah.
is a real charge. I get a big kick out of that.
Yeah, love that. Alfonso, hello to you over there on Facebook. Glad to be able to see you. Hello to you, Rebecca. Good to be able to see you over there on IG. Chris, hello to you. SMF Counseling. Hello to you over there on IG as well. I want to reset real, Chris. Reset real quick, Larry, and say for those who are just tuning in, welcome. You're watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live, but we're simulcasting across Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X, as well as on Instagram. Excited to welcome Larry Zuckerman to our broadcast today. We're talking about his own love of history and storytelling and how they come together in his newest book you guys can see here, To Save a Life. You can get it here on Amazon, both the print edition and the Kindle edition as well. I asked you about purposely, Larry, about them individually. Now I want to talk about Malka and Yakov together because I think one of the things that really stood out to me is there's nothing like having someone that believes in you, who believes in what's possible for you, even when other people don't. And quite honestly, as we see with Yakov, sometimes even he could be losing faith, and having someone like Malcolm there as well. What was it like for you to bring them together with their different backgrounds and to have them kind of become that support system for each other?
I got a kick out of that. It wasn't, I work without an outline.
Okay.
So I don't know how things are actually going to unfold. I have a vague idea of the ending, but I certainly don't know about the middle, which is really the most crucial part. And
Yeah.
so I have Malk and Yaakov meet very early on, and their paths will cross again.
Hmm.
So I was trying to figure out what would bring them together and what would keep them apart.
Mm.
And there's an awful lot of stubbornness and suspiciousness in Malka's nature, but there's
Yeah.
also a terrible fear of rejection in Yaakov's.
Hmm.
And so neither of them, because they have each left Russia under shameful circumstances that they can't talk about, they doubt that they even deserve the freedom that they worked so hard to get, or the happiness that they could have. Are they allowed to be happy? And that question is very important to me.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of people live as though they don't deserve to be happy. And so I wanted to explore that through the two of them, because some readers have told me, "What, are they nuts?" I mean, it's like who've read the book. Said, what's their problem? I want to shake them. And I said, no, that's because it's dyed in the wool with them. That's who they are.
Yeah. Gregory, hello to you. Good to see you over on Facebook as well. When you said that, it reminded me of something from the book, Larry. And I think I love what you said about happiness, but I think too the other thing for the reader is who gets to determine your happiness.
Mhm.
Because I think for Malka and for Yakov both, they could do what other people would expect them to do, right? But for them to have the audacity to choose for themselves what happiness looks like for them, and to be at peace with that, I think is such a big thing. Even if it doesn't turn out exactly like they would have hoped, at least to know they tried, and were able to try that. How has that helped you in your life, Larry, to know that it really is about you making a decision about what you want and then going for it?
It has helped me in some ways, but it's also been terrifying in others.
No.
I will freely admit that. I mean, I became an at-home father decades ago when very few men did that.
Hmm.
Um, I have devoted myself to my writing when other people were looking at me and saying, what's your problem? You're not selling any books. Why don't you do something else?
Hmm.
And this is who I am. I had to do that. So it hurt to hear that.
Yeah.
And there are times when I doubted myself, but I said, no, this is what I have to do. And this is what I will do. And so, yes, that part of me informs Malka and Yakov. That's
Yeah.
who they are as well.
So that scene then that I referenced with Yakov about life basically being a parable, is that something you could resonate with someone asking you and thinking about the choices you've made?
I suppose. I mean, Yakov says, no, his life is not a parable. It's
Mm.
the guy who's asking him is, let's be honest, something of a jerk.
Right.
But 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 what he does say is that it has, even though it's not been written down, even though it's not a familiar story, as in the Bible, which is what this guy is talking about,
Mhm.
it's still something that matters, and
Yeah.
it's still real. And yes, I am conscious of how I live and how I want to live, and I don't just want to sleepwalk through it.
Right.
And that's I it was Socrates who said an unexamined life is not worth living. You could probably put that on my gravestone.
Mm. I want to go back to something you said, Larry. I thought was interesting. I think it's a great connection for our audience to think about when they think about themselves and where they are in their lives, especially as we are finding ourselves now coming to the end of another year. You said when you were writing the book, you kind of had an idea where it would go, but the middle part, you didn't. I think that's kind of where all of us kind of find ourselves.
Yes.
We kind of know where we want this thing to end up, but how we're going to get there. What has that been like for you to connect with in your life? That like the way you approach writing, and what helps you to keep going even when you are uncertain as to what's to come?
Because several things. My wife has always encouraged me,
Hmm.
and that matters. To have someone who loves you, who sees you, who understands you, and who believes, as you said before, Cyrus.
Hmm.
It's that belief means everything. So I don't have, 20,000 people um, battering on my door, but I have one inside my home
Yeah,
who, and that makes all the difference.
yeah,
And it's also that call me egotistical, but I happen to think I wrote a very good book. And so, um, the beauty of what I've done is also I'm pleased with that. And so, even if no one read it,
mm,
even if you were the only person who was talking to me about it, that would I know that I had done something that I'm proud of.
yeah. Did it? I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, and you really have written a great book, Larry. But I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation how getting into this book, it felt familiar. Is that one of the things that you hope would happen with readers, that they would be able to kind of settle into the world you've created and really feel like they know these characters?
Of course, that's what every novelist hopes for. And a historical novelist, I mean, it's that the thing about it is, in order to write historical fiction, you have to understand the mindset of the era you're writing about, which is something that people didn't necessarily talk about because it was self-evident to them. So
Yeah.
you have to figure out what that is, what their hates, their loves, their causes, and their beliefs were. And then you have to render that subtly and faithfully and convey it to a modern audience without calling attention to it, which is, I mean, that's very difficult to do, but I love it. And so when I have done that, I feel as though I've done something. And if I've done it well enough, people can slip right into it as though it were their own atmosphere, as though it were their own lives. And that
Yeah.
is such when someone tells me that my work has reached them in that way, that's the best thing there is. That's what being an author is all about.
Yeah. When you hear from fellow authors as the ones who blurbed this book and also were praising it, so there's more of us out here, Larry. Um, what is that like for you to know that not only do your peers enjoy your work, but they also enjoy the world that you created in your work?
That means a lot too. That I was very gratified to have them first of all say that they would read it, because these are writers that I admire,
Sure.
and then to say, "Wow, look what you did," and I think, well, that's very nice. I'm very gratified by that.
Well, I know our audience will enjoy it as well. Again, everyone, Larry Zuckerman has been our guest. The book is To Save a Life. It's available now, of course, here on Amazon. You can get it in print, as I have it here, or you can get the Kindle edition as well. The Kindle edition is actually on sale right now for $9.99. You all can get it there for sure. Larry, really appreciate you stopping by. Great conversation with you. Let our audience know how they can stay connected with you.
They can visit my website, www.larryzuckerman.com, and I have a new newsletter out called Times Past, which is about little nuggets of history and how I write about them and how they make me feel and why they matter.
Love it. Alfonso, thank you so much for the compliment. He says, enjoyable interview. Glad you enjoyed it. I hope you guys did as well on the simulcast. And we appreciate you guys being with us here at Cyrus Webb Presents. Larry, thank you again for stopping by. Looking forward to our next chat together.
Thank you for having me.
And glad to do it. And we thank you all for joining us for Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.